This is Josh Brennan of the Buffalo Bandits, and you're listening to the 716 Sports Podcast.
Bitch better have my money. Welcome to the 716 Sports Podcast. Recording on a Monday. Feels good to be back in the studio with you. Doing my Jeff announcer voice right now.
Whoa.
Hey, how you doing, folks? Check it out. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. And we're giving a little shine to the folks that may not always get it tonight. There's not a lot going on amongst the big two.
Sabres still don't have a coach.
They're doing apparently, potential interviews on radio stations and seeing how that goes. So that's cool. IHF rosters have been named. There's a few Sabres on there, but for the most part, the hockey world is caring about the playoffs for some reason, which I don't really fully understand.
Can't imagine why. What are the playoffs anyway? It's been a minute.
Not fully aware of what's going on, but as Justin said, Columbus with a 3-2 lead on Boston. We'll see if that holds up, showing how much he's been paying attention. So let's talk about good things to begin. Let's talk about the Buffalo Bandits, the most dominant professional team in this market for the last couple of years, but especially this year. So let's talk about it.
Yeah, I was driving home from the game on Saturday, and it set in that I've waited my entire life for Buffalo to beat New England in the playoffs, and finally, after all this time, my prayers have been answered because the Buffalo Bandits beat the New England Black Wolves in the opening round of the NLL playoffs 13-6. A wire-to-wire lead. 45 seconds in, Ian McKay gets a nice goal, and they never trailed, never tied. Another just complete team effort by this team, and it hasn't gotten old yet. It's so fun to watch, and every week they find new ways to impress. Even with a team in New England, we talked about it before on the show, Steve, beating a team once is hard. Beating a team twice is harder. They just keep beating New England, and feels like different versions of the same way. The Black Wolves, no answers for anything Buffalo had on Saturday.
That was a Darius Kilgore quote, especially when the league had less teams, you'd play. There was the one year that Buffalo played Rochester like 5 or 6 times, and, they beat them pretty handily, and then the third time they played, and he'd say, look, it's hard to beat a team 3 times because they're going to be privy to what you're doing. The difference is the Bandits are so talented. This is not a matter of New England being not talented. It's just that Buffalo is way more talented. New England's got some big guns. They've got some ability, but that's twice in a row now that Buffalo kind of made them look silly because they were so much better than they were. And it's interesting because they did kind of run away with it, but the game still felt interesting because you had so many strange things happen. You had Jordan Durston and Josh Byrne. So Corey, we're going to talk to Corey Smalls, and he mentions how he gets blown up. So the Bandits pull the goalie for a 6-on-5, not for any other reason than to try to score. Like there was no penalty coming on the play.
It's a play they've run a number of times throughout the season. With success, or at least no negative repercussion.
Yeah, so Vino runs to the bench, and Dane comes off as the 6th man. And Dane comes in streaking, and if they're manned up on defense, he's loose. And then what happens is they pass the ball to Dane, who shoots, and someone from the left side heads to the bench so that it's a swap to get Vino back in. Well, Corey Smalls gets blown up, and the play really doesn't work. But as soon as Buffalo gets possession back, Vino went back to the bench again. So Vino had headed back to the net, saw that Buffalo regained possession, and actually made it to the bench. Smith comes off, the play gets broken up, and now from Durston himself, I talked to him after the game at 716, him and Burnsy are heading back, and they didn't realize the net was empty. They were communicating to each other who was picking up whom on the back check there. And all of a sudden, Dirty said he looks in the net, and there's no one there. So he steps into the crease and get his best little scarecrow and baited Fournier to try to twist on him, and Dirty made the big
right elbow.
Yeah. And then Vino comes sprinting into the net, and Byrne says he made the second save.
We're gonna need a grassy knoll camera angle on whether Byrne or Vino got the second save. But Hollywood trying to get him in there. Durston got the first one for sure.
Was awarded the save of the game, rightfully so. But then Chase Fraser gets in a little bit of a friend of the show. Chase Fraser gets in a little bit of a mix-up in the corner that ends with him holding a guy by the face mask, raining down haymakers on the back of his head, and dragging him along the turf.
Only got 4 for it, though.
Yeah, 4 for roughing when you're punching guys in the back of the head.
It's not bad.
No. It must be Charlie McAvoy's official.
Topical.
Edgy topical humor.
That happened about 20 minutes before we started recording this show.
New England starts pulling the goaltender with like 8 minutes to go in the game.
Well, at that point, you almost have to do something.
Yeah, there's not much that they could do otherwise. And as you said, a wire-to-wire win, a lot of energy in the arena, some amped up moments for sure.
It was loud in the hundreds. It was
There's a lot on the
just
building.
great to have playoffs back in that building. It had been a couple rough years there where they were bottom of the league and couldn't figure it out no matter how much talent they had. And it's been great seeing a team get retooled like this and just everything is clicking for them. And we're going to talk to Corey about it too. It's not one thing. It's the offense is good. It's loaded on both sides. The defense has been good, and it's tied together with it was loud MVP chants over in 106 where I was when Matt Vins went off late in the game for looked to be precautionary. He took that tumble and fall, looked to be okay, but
he said he got kicked in the head and his chin strap was up to his nose, but he was okay. Like he took a knee to the head and his chin strap was riding up his nose. But
so things kind of interesting right now. There's actually playoff games that are currently taking place that we will see what happens, especially in the East. But saw Saskatchewan was eliminated. They were the number one seed out west,
was an
which
interesting game.
Kind of a big surprise by Colorado. So
they're lucky they even got to overtime. And
things seem to be. So far so good as far as you don't want to think ahead, but as we will hear in the interview, things so far have broken exactly how you'd want them to. If you're a Bandits fan.
Well, sure, and you've got a San Diego team out west without Austin Stott, so they're hamstrung.
Lost 4 of their last 6, I believe.
Playing Calgary, who we beat pretty soundly in this building, and we beat Colorado pretty soundly in this building. The biggest, not to say this is what would happen, I think the biggest challenge is the game this Saturday.
Preach it.
Because I think Toronto and Georgia are the second and third best teams in the league, let alone the second and third best teams in this conference. You maybe throw Saskatchewan in there.
Calgary's been so hot lately, though. Dane Doby almost wins the Triple Crown down the stretch, but you get 2 or 3 in Buffalo, and that's a long trip for Calgary to make. So,
and it's a loud building, and everyone you ever talk to about every Bandits player you've talked to has always been the home crowd is part of the advantage. So again, we'll plug it too in the interview we have with Corey coming up here in a moment. Just if you're on the fence about it, I cannot speak highly enough, and this is from a fan, not someone doing this podcast, to get your tickets, go down there Saturday night, May 11th, 7:30 face-off against the winner of Toronto and Georgia. We'll probably know that by the
Toronto up 13-9 right now with 13 minutes to go in the game.
So we'll know before we're done recording here tonight, but it's going to be awesome. It's loud. It's fun. It's a party, as the players will be sure to let you know every time. Best ticket in town at this point with how well they're playing. And it's going to be a good game, though, on Saturday. There's nothing easy about playing either Toronto or Georgia. Those are 2 very talented teams. Toronto won the season series against Buffalo. Georgia was the champions just 2 years ago. It's going to be
beat
a
Buffalo
huge
once
challenge.
This year, at home. Buffalo lost to Georgia at home, but and just to have a heads up for you guys, May 11th, this Saturday, 7:30, is second round of the playoffs against either Georgia or Toronto. First game 1 of the championship series, should it happen, should the Buffalo win this Saturday, will be May 18th. At 7:30. Game 2 is on the road the weekend of the 24th. That date is to be determined because it depends on the arena availability of the team out west that they would be playing. Game 3, which would be the decisive game if it was necessary, would be Friday, May 31st in Buffalo. As Jeff mentioned, Saturday would be booked by 21 pilots. So
sipping on chlorine.
Yeah.
Straight chlorine. You can't do that, by the way.
No,
I'm
you
pretty
cannot.
Sure that would kill you.
Yeah, that's a bad idea.
Man, am I glad they got rid of that the 1 year where they did the second and third game consecutively.
The mini game.
Yeah,
that was silly. The mini game
was rough.
So, I do like that it's a full 3-game series for the NLL Cup, but one step at a time, right, gentlemen? So it starts Saturday at home.
Yeah, definitely cannot afford to look past either team who emerges from this game. It's going to be close, but both teams with wins in Buffalo, but both teams Buffalo has beaten this season. I would expect a much closer game than we saw at points on. You won't get 2 Steve Priolo goals in the fourth quarter, in all likelihood, in the fourth quarter against Toronto or Georgia. I love when Steve scores because he circles around the net. He looks like he's just like a little kid every time he scores. He's so excited about it.
The Instagram video, you can hear him cheering because he's so fun. That was a great goal.
That was a great goal.
So is it a long outlet pass, and he scoops it about 5 feet in front of the crease. He had room to take 1 step, and he managed to wrap it around his foot far post. There was not much room there, and he did. And you literally hear him giving the woos as he runs around. He's so energetic about everything. You literally can be like, "Hey, Steve, it's a beautiful day outside today." He'd be like, "Yeah, I know. It's like sunny and like 70 degrees, and I just want to go out for a run." He's just a very excitable guy. So it's
and then you watch him out there dragging guys by the face mask every time he
pretty much
gets a little angry with them. And He's a great captain for the team.
So can we talk about one other story? And this made me think of it. So for those of you guys that don't know, the pre-game shoot-around. So these guys take the floor for basically 3 shoot-arounds. The formal shoot-around right before the game. Shoot-around before that where they do formal stretches. And then before that is like just kind of dick around, no helmets, whatever. Well, I won't say the player's name because the team didn't, but the player shoots the ball on Saturday. This is at about 6 o'clock off the post and hits Ethan O'Connor square in the eye. Blood, towels, trainers. He's on the ground. I was on the bench and it was like awkward. Like, what do you say? What do you do? And you just feel for Ethan. Like it's the players on the floor all step off. Shanny's in net and he's like the third string goalie. He doesn't know what to do. I feel like we can talk about this comfortably now because Ethan was okay. Yeah. He went to the hospital, came back, had a nice shiner. Eye was open. But I said to Steve after the game in the post-game interviews, I said, "You're the captain. I'm not asking for you to tell me about locker room talk. How did you handle it?" Ethan goes down. He's an everyday player. He's a really good transition player. It's a fluke accident. He goes down. How did you handle it? And I loved it. He said, first thing I did was go to Sweets. Bryce Sweeting was slotted in because Ethan O'Connor goes down. He said, I went to Sweets and I said, you're ready and we know you can do this. And Sweeting has played a lot this year and is a nice player.
He had a really good game on Saturday,
he did.
too.
And he said, then I went to the team and I said, the best thing that we can do is win for OC. And he said, OC's in the locker room right now having a riot because we won. He said, so we did our job. But, like, what a fucking thing for the captain to say and do. Like, for him to first go to the guy that's got a slot in now an hour before game time and be like, your number's up, man, let's do this. And then to address the team that way. Just awesome. Like, I think he's a great captain.
What's the status for...
JT said he could go next week.
So no structural damage or
not that we know of. He had quite a nice shiner above and below his eye, but didn't have to wear a patch or anything. Might have got some zippers, but he was okay, come halftime.
For those of you who may or may not have ever been hit by a lacrosse ball, it is not fun no matter how much padding it is. Those things are solid. They move, especially like that when it hits a post and ricochets back to a guy's protected face like that. So happy to hear that nothing worse than for O'Connor than just having to sit out, hopefully for just the first round game, because I think he's really come around nicely this season too. Had a very good defensive end transition addition to this team.
And unofficially, I think Hogarth could have played Saturday, but they want him to be 100%. And so you have to think about
there's a chance that both he and OC could.
Yeah, and if you think about the right side, it's Dane, Evans, Fraser. Who are you sitting from those 3 guys? And Hogarth's been a great goal scorer, so it's an instance where if they weren't so deep, I think Hogarth plays. He took part in the morning shoot-around and looked good. I think he's probably 95%. I don't know. This is not official. But, this is just how deep they are, and they're healthy. As a team, they're healthy. And, the worst thing I have right now is...
I had my heart in my throat for a second when Chase took that one major to the jaw, the shoulder, and he went off immediately.
Yeah, he said he couldn't open his jaw. But then he said it opened up and he was fine.
Because he was back out taking a face off a minute later. He's a tough guy.
He was just
friend of the pod, Chase Frazier, dragging guys around, taking shoulders to the face. Yep. And we're going to add another friend of the pod to the list here right now as we're going to take a moment here to talk to Buffalo Bandit forward Corey Smalls about his thoughts about Saturday's game and his first season here in Buffalo.
Welcome back to the 716 Sports Podcast. Joined now by the kitten, Corey Smalls. Smallsy, thanks for taking some time out to hang out with us tonight.
No, thanks for having me. I'm pretty excited to be on here today.
Listen, I've wanted to talk to you for quite a few weeks now, and I'm glad that we finally got it to happen. And now, because it's all things playoffs, Lindsay chased me down on Saturday right after the game and said, who do you want to talk to on Monday? And hand to God, telling the truth, my first name out of my mouth was Corey Smalls. So that's a fact. Wow. And now you owe me a Timmy's or something just because.
Yeah, fair enough.
At least you followed me on Twitter.
Yeah, took a while. I promise. I swear. I thought I was following you the whole time.
Just for the other guys in the room, he liked 8 of my tweets and never followed me. I had to give him shit for it in Rochester.
I should probably go follow you before this air so no one can look back and check.
Yeah, because I was just curious what the limit is of how many times someone can like a tweet from you without following you.
just blacklisted after that.
100%. But I'll forgive you only because I like you so much. All right, Corey. So off season, I don't mean to wind the clock way back, but the off season, you get traded for Mitch Jones, kind of one of those geography trades because you come back to the East Coast and you end up coming to play for the team that you grew up watching. And now you fast forward to early May, and what a ride it's been. You guys are headed to the second round, the East Division Finals of the NLL Cup.
Yeah, it's been an incredible experience and an incredible journey being in Buffalo. Yeah, it was a little bit of a wild off season. I mean, a lot of CBA negotiation stuff going on, and tons of uncertainty with guys and where they're going to play, and myself in particular. Obviously, we needed to kind of figure out the whole CBA stuff before any kind of trades or any real roster moves could happen. And I'm close enough friends with Mitch to know we were both kind of in the same situation, trying to move closer to home. And I'm just happy it finally happened when it did, and I'm super excited to be in Buffalo and happy that it's been an incredible year that it's been. And obviously we've got a little bit of work left to do here, but we're definitely in a position where we've got a team, coaching staff, and an entire organization that's poised to play for the championship. And I can't wait for this weekend to get back out and get one step closer.
How do you feel about your role this year? I know in Vancouver, obviously you had Logan and a couple other guys up front with Reese on the other side, but I don't want to say that you've been stuck in a role of a power play specialist, but you did lead the league in power play goals, which is pretty impressive. But you guys have all learned to share the ball. There's really no one that's been the guy. And maybe I'm wrong to say you maybe felt like a more prominent part of the offense in Vancouver, but you still have found quite a role and a nice point total this year from you. And leading the league in power play goals is not anything to be upset about.
No, you know what? At this point in my career, it's just all about winning. I mean, not that it always hasn't been, but I've been in this league 10 years, and this is by far the best team I've ever played for in terms of record and where we finished. And I think it's the team I've had the best opportunity to play for a championship. So. Yeah, I think my role definitely changed a little bit. Obviously, playing in Vancouver, I was more of a primary ball carrier and maybe a more primary shooter or scorer. Whereas, we just got so many athletic guys on Buffalo that I don't need to carry the ball. More or less, you can let guys like Josh Byrne or Dane Smith or Chase or even Shawnee's. He's got that playmaking ability. So for me, it's more or less just trying to get my stick open and trying to find those lanes for those guys because, with their athletic ability and their playmaking ability, they make a lot of defenses have to slide or change what they're doing. And a lot of times for me, it's just about getting open. And I think that's the same thing on the power play. I mean, we just have so many threats. Fortunately for me, the ball just seems to find my stick and those scoring opportunities on the power play. And, if I got to score majority of my goals that way, then I'm totally fine with that.
So being at the game on Saturday, one thing I noticed a lot when you're on the floor, especially on the power play, is how much you guys are communicating, even without the ball, how much signaling and discussion is going on to create those plays and create those goals. How has it been getting into a new team this year, but already so quickly you guys gelling like that and making life for opposing defenses so difficult with how well you move the ball side to side?
I think, we just have such a talented group up front. It's been pretty seamless. Fortunately for me, I played with Jordan Durston in Vancouver. I played with Dane in Victoria in the summer. A few years ago, I played with Shawnee and Hogarth as well in the summer in Peterborough this past year. So I've had opportunities to play with a lot of these guys along the way. So it's not a whole lot of new stuff for me up front with those guys. But obviously, the guys I haven't played with, they're so talented offensively that everybody just kind of does the right fundamental stuff, and it's kind of easy to feed off of and kind of pick up from there. And there's so much talent and playmaking ability, and it's just kind of come easy, I think, so far. So I think that just kind of speaks to our coaching as well. Obviously, we've got some great plays we run on the power play and on our even strength that. We're always set up for success when we're on the floor as an offensive crew.
You guys, one of the big differences between this year and the 2 years prior, and I know you weren't here, is the ability to overcome some adversity. It felt like the last couple of years, if Buffalo gave up a goal early or a run early, the game would be over. And you guys have had plenty of games where you've been able to build positive momentum because of how well you've played. But it also seems like if there's been games or quarters or segments of time that you guys haven't played well, you've still managed to get get on a run yourselves and not let that get you down. What do you attribute that to? Is that the talent? Is that how close you guys are as a team? Is that Vino making some big saves? Is that coaching? Is it a perfect storm of all of them? I think I just answered the question for you.
Yeah, you know what? I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. It's a bit of a.
I hit 7 different nails, Corey. I didn't hit any nail.
Yeah.
I just swung and got lucky.
No, but you know what? It's like you said. There's a lot of different factors that play into that, and I mean, obviously, Vino in the back end there. Every night he's in net, you know you have a really good opportunity to win, even if as a team in front of him you're not playing your best game. He holds us in a lot of games, and then you know. I think a lot of the stuff happens too with experience. Maybe, you know, in years past with Buffalo not being able to overcome adversity, you know, maybe guys are maturing as players, and obviously we all played in the summer and played in the NLL for years, and you have these opportunities in other leagues to kind of, you know, build experience and play for winning teams. And, you know, we've got, I think 6 or 7 guys that played for the Peterborough Lakers that just won back-to-back Mann Cups. So there's a lot of guys that have come from winning traditions along the way, and I think that's kind of translating into, you know, that maturity on the floor and you know, that ability not to hit the panic button when things aren't necessarily going good for us. And I think that's a big part of it, is just having guys that have that culture and have that winning resume, and I think that all translates well when you're into tough games and in games where maybe things aren't going well for you.
Now, looking back to the game on Saturday, you guys go out ahead early, good 4-1 lead. New England starts crawling back a little bit into that game to 4-3, but it never really felt like that game was much. You guys never played like you were worried about anything. Now, 2 consecutive home wins against New England. Does playing that team at the end of the regular season at home give you that extra level of confidence, knowing that you have already proven that you can execute the game plan to win in that one-and-done scenario?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think we were confident going into that game. We're confident going into pretty much every game just because of the group we have in the season we've had so far. You know, it's kind of funny the way playoffs have gone, even in hockey and the first round with the SAS game, with top seeds kind of falling off. We had that kind of in the back of our mind as well. So we just wanted to make sure we were really focused going into that game. And, you know, we didn't want to be upset. We've worked way too hard this year and finished with too strong of a season to kind of get bounced in the first round. So, I mean, we came out hot, and they made some adjustments. They were pressuring us a little more in transition, especially when we got the ball from defense to offense. It seemed like they were jumping the ball real quick. I know I took a big hit there at one point during the game. But, you know, we were able to kind of counter that adjustment and make some adjustments ourselves that put us back in a good position. And, you know, that kind of comes from experience as well as, you know, obviously our coaching staff reading the game very well and giving us an opportunity to kind of recover when, you know, they've come back at us after we've done it 3-0.
So you've been around the game a long time, both in the summer and in the NLL. I don't know if you've seen a play. I don't want to give him way too much credit because I was already pumping his tires on Saturday when Dirty made that save. So now we saw earlier in the year, I don't remember who it was against, but Jammer's coming down the floor and someone steps in front of the net, and Jammer let about 106 mile an hour shot go into the corner, like, go ahead and try to stop it. Now Fournier comes down and for whatever reason takes the bait when Dirty puts the arm up. Have you ever seen anything like that? And did he ever stop talking about it after the game?
You know what? That might have been the play of the game, and even the point of the game it was at. I think it was 3-1. So they scored that, then it's 3-2. So you know what? It was a huge play all around, and it was funny because in the locker room we're all kind of chuckling about it. But if you looked in the locker room after the game, there was about a 4x4 space on the brick wall in the locker room that was taped up as a net, and him, Hogarth, Chase, and some of the guys were taking turns playing goalie in the locker room with the tape ball. So I don't know if that's just luck or what, or that was fate that happened prior to the game. But it was funny when he got back there, and yeah, it looked like he played a little bit of backyard lacrosse at some point in his life because he didn't look too unnatural in net there, and that's a great play. And you know what? And the situation that was in, we pulled the goalie to run a kind of a sneak 6-on-5 play.
And that's when you took the hit, actually.
Yeah, it was right before that, and that's a play where you can actually hurt yourself if you kind of quit on the ball and they go down and get an easy empty net, and it was good on him to not quit and get back into the defensive zone and and have the ball to step in net and block that shot. So that was pretty incredible.
And Byrne is taking credit for the rebound on the save. He said at 716, everyone says Vino got the second shot. Burnsy said it was him.
Yeah, we'll have to watch the tape on that.
We need a second angle on that.
We'll get Chico to review that along with the 7 other goals he's had to review tonight. But
he's trying to get in there and dirty for the backup goaltender.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, exactly, right. Come on. We're trying to steal some of the guys' shine there.
So we have one question from a fan that comes in every time, and it's a good one. What's the best chirp you've heard? It can be from a teammate to the other team. It could be from another team to you guys. Now, Chase said that he was called a prima donna pretty boy.
Yeah,
that one kind of stuck. And then
Josh was Hollywood.
Fucking Hollywood. Hollywood, you fucking idiot. That was his words, not mine. He said someone said you're a fucking idiot, Hollywood. So that's kind of stuck. So best chirp you've heard, either delivered or received on the floor.
Oh man, that's a really good one. I'm kind of put on the spot here. I can't even really.
No one ever chirps kitten though. You don't get chirped ever.
No, you know what? I don't get a lot of chirps.
Because you demand respect, Smallsy. They look at you and they know that you demand respect.
No, God, I wish I. It's a good question.
I threw him for a loop. The dude's played for 10 years and he's never heard a chirp in his life.
The thing is, at some point, it becomes like you've heard so many, you have to go back and try to pick out one. I think you almost have too much experience at this point.
They're all blurred together. There hasn't. I don't know if I've ever heard one that's been really, like even the Hollywood one about Burnsy. Like I've probably heard that about 6 or 7 different people. And prima donna. I mean, God, there's got to be at least a couple on every team.
Yeah, well, if the shoe fits, right? Yeah. I mean, that's just it.
Yeah, that's it. I don't know.
We got another.
Maybe if I can think of one, I'll bring it up. But right now I'm running a blank. But nothing that's out of the ordinary, I don't think.
We got another comment from somebody that is kind of random, asking like who your favorite girl in the world is or something. I don't know. You might want to check on that fan because they seem a little bit obsessive. I mean, I think her name is Lauren or something like that. I would watch out for that one.
Yeah, I bet her Twitter handle is something like @CSmallsy or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. That sounds about right. You might want to. I mean, maybe you and her would have a possibility of working out. Yeah, maybe that's an option.
I'm pretty sure she's listening in from the other room. So,
well, I mean, this was your chance because she said you were in deep shit if you messed it up. So, I think you did pretty well not hurting yourself there. All right, same thing we said to Gilray last week. Give us your best plug. Don't mess this up because this is exactly why Lindsay wanted you on the show, or why we're doing this plug. Now we've had plenty of interviews on, but with playoffs, you got to give us your best plug for Saturday because we know we want that place to fill up.
There's like 8 seats left in my row for season tickets. I want them all full.
Yeah, nail it. So this is all you, Smallsy. Give us your best promo for the game Saturday.
Oh man, all I can say is if you want to see the most action-packed sport. A full-time party all game long, hard-hitting games, high-scoring games, next level athletic ability. You got to check out lacrosse, and obviously Buffalo's got the best fans in the league, the loudest arena, and we're at home for the Eastern Conference Finals starting Saturday. So I don't think it's an event you want to miss. Saturday,
May 11th, face-off set for 7:30. Tickets at bandits.com. Make sure you check those out. Smallsy, thanks for your time. I appreciate it. I'm glad we finally got to do this. Lax class might have gotten to you first, but I know you had way more fun talking to us tonight. I know that's a big fact.
No, this was great. This is great, guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Corey, we'll see you Saturday. Enjoy your week.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, guys.
And thanks to Smallsy for hopping on here with us and talking Bandits lacrosse again, guys. Last time we'll mention it here on the show, but so important. If you're interested in going to the game, want to join us all in Bandit Land, we will be there loud and proud Saturday night, May 11th, 7:30 p.m. Tickets available on bandits.com. If you're interested in joining us all there for 3-ish hours of fun in Bandit Land. So,
let's talk about potential death now.
Yeah, let's talk about something we've talked about in a few different ways. The rise and fall, the interims, the issues, and what might be really a significant paralyzing blow to the existence of the NWHL that came out late last week, when a number of players, and it's really a growing number of players, I don't want to put a cap on it because they continue to come out as time goes on, led maybe more vocally by Hillary Knight, Kendall Coyne-Schofield, players with that name recognition out for the mainstream hockey audience that exists, because with Kendall being on the NHL and NBC broadcast, she's all over the place here these last couple weeks, saying that they do not intend to play professional women's hockey next year or theoretically indefinitely without the existence of a league that pays them a livable wage, because what is available to them right now, and this is not much of a secret to anyone who has watched professional women's hockey in the NWHL, the CWHL these last few years, that league presently does not exist. And the NWHL's grand designs of expanding to Toronto and Montreal have all but been shied away, because at this point, there's not going to be a whole lot of players who are going to be stepping on the ice at Harbor Center come October. And this may just be me, and I, as much as anyone, have, with the 3.5 years I have invested in working for the Buffalo Beauts, working for the NWHL, traveling to all-star games and traveling to road home games and all of this, want this to succeed. I do not see a scenario in which these players are happy and the NWHL is in operation next season.
Right. So, and I think that's the key, is that they're not happy with what the NWHL has done. I don't know. They put teams in 4 markets to varying degrees of success, to varying degrees of fan participation.
Yeah. I would say 3 very successful and 1
Connecticut has been pretty rough. But there have been incremental gains. I think the Pagulas taking over the Buttes was a big thing. I think the partnership that the Riveters had or have with the Devils,
the Whitecaps with the Wild, and any step like that. Where
and the Whitecaps were a good expansion. They're outside of the natural footprint of these teams. However, all indications were that market did really well this year for a first time.
Whitecaps fans and the fan base in Minnesota was incredible and incredibly receptive.
And I only say that because I know it always seemed to me that Pittsburgh was going to be their next goal, with, as you mentioned before, driving down to All-Star games and having home games on neutral sites in Pittsburgh and everything. With that, it certainly seemed like Pittsburgh would be the logical conclusion. But that's neither here nor there. What the matter is now the most influential players in the league have said we're not playing for this under this structure, and it does seem like a power play to. That's a hockey term, and I didn't even mean it, but it does seem like a move by the players, and really this is spearheaded by the top players for the the United States and Canada. To push the NHL into supporting their vision for a more fair and just professional women's league in North America.
And so a few things that stood out to me over the course of the last week. Hillary Knight said that if the CWHL existed, she'd go back there next year. And I know not to bury the lead and force you to go back into the deep dives of why Bill opened the show the way he did. But
there's no need to bring up the past.
It's a known thing that Hillary Knight, the last year she was in the NWHL, salaries were cut very significantly, and it seemed very much in doubt that the league would continue to exist past that month. I remember sitting at a game with you and Eric and thinking that was it. Like, that home game we were at the week that came out, that we would not come back there. And somehow, kicking and screaming maybe at points, the NWHL found a way to overcome that. Whether it's through partnerships with the Riveters, the Pagulas eventually taking ownership of the Buttes, things like that. They were able to do just enough.
And the corporate sponsorships with Duncan. And Duncan, at the time, now Duncan, and also I believe that the equipment companies were stepping up as well.
Bauer's been doing a lot,
providing them with essentially free equipment.
And the thing is, the league didn't do that to line their own pockets to make them rich. They did it to save the league, because the financial system just wasn't viable.
Sure. And that's what it is too.
Maybe they went about it the wrong way. They just kind of did they didn't have a conversation. Just abruptly cut them.
Well, it was a pure desperation move on the league's part.
Well, you got to realize Harbor Center is probably one of the at least more full, probably best attended. It has the best.
The only question was this year with the Whitecaps that maybe they drew better crowds.
Right, but of the original four teams,
Harbor Center is consistently
1,500 or so capacity at Harbor.
Yeah,
something like that, 1,600.
So let's just say 1,500 to make it easy. $15 a ticket is $22,500 per game. Ticket income times 8 is $180,000 a season that they're bringing in for 8 home games. I mean, there's not a lot of wiggle room after you say average $2,000 per player played per player. That's $50,000 in pay. But I'm guessing some players get more than $2,000.
Well, there's also 18 players per team because you got 9 forwards, 6 defenders, and 3 goalies.
But
plus practice players.
Yeah. So I for some reason went with 25. But
it's a little smaller than an NHL active roster by 1 forward line.
Okay, but still, you're
still a lot of splitting going on here.
Yeah, but the thing is, you have
plus coaches.
Yeah, you have staff, coaches,
facilities,
you have
plus renting the ice, plus equipment, plus travel, plus
even saying 25 players at that rate was only $150,000 to cover everything else that you mentioned, the staff, the equipment, everything else. I mean, there's not a lot of room financially the way the league is now for them to pay players more, let alone a living wage.
And that's where we sit. So this is the NWHL, basically the most they can pay. There's players that are making $2,000 a year and no health insurance. If someone goes down the corner and tears an ACL, there goes that $2,000 plus whatever else in medical bills, rehabilitation, all to just go out and try to make a living on. And I completely understand where they're coming from. This is not coming from a place of like, oh, I can't believe they're doing this and standing up the league. I can't imagine putting the time and effort that these players who are the best in the world at what they do, putting the time and effort that they are into this and getting barely enough to cover their gas back and forth from Ontario to travel here. Like, I understand it.
But the beginning of all pro sports leagues, and the very beginning of all pro sports leagues were like that. Major League Baseball, NFL, all pro sports, it used to be. That was your second gig. You did not get paid enough to live. You barely made anything. And as the leagues grew, they started becoming big enough where they could sustain first living pay and then these massive contracts that we see today, but it took many, many years.
And also those leagues started when smoking was good for you, and 2 of them started before women could vote. So times have changed, and I understand what your point is. I think so there's 2 different models that many women's hockey fans hate saying. And look, we're 5 white guys talking about women's hockey. So bear with us here, and let's just acknowledge that, and we can continue to move on with this conversation. One is the WNBA model, where the NBA sustains the WNBA and loses money on it every single year. My understanding is that nobody wants the NHL to be involved with this. And let's be honest, the NHL doesn't have a great track record of doing things good.
I mean, the NHL didn't even want to pay Brianna Decker for winning a competition at their own event that they ran and had her participate in. So
I mean, they got kicking and screaming, and it was kind of a PR nightmare.
And then
for
Bauer paid them,
right? So and they ended up getting kind of off the hook anyway, right? Yeah. But that's the thing, and you know why? It's because there are fans that would not necessarily be attracted to going to an NBA game that can go to a WNBA game, and the WNBA teams no longer is it exclusively owned by the parent company, or the parent team, the men's team, and there are independent teams. I know the team in Chicago is independently owned. I believe the team in Connecticut is independently owned. This is for the WNBA. So even they're in cities, but they're not necessarily. I think the Sky play at like Illinois, Chicago, or one of the smaller arenas, and they don't play at the United Center. But just understanding that there's more to it than just making money, and if you give the players somewhat fair compensation, and even to be honest, the players make more. They play in European leagues, and Russian oligarchs, their only goal is to just win, and they don't care how much money they put into it. So players actually earn more money playing overseas than they do in North America, but the exposure is obviously greatest here in North America. So that's the first model that they could go with, and it would be interesting to see if you took 10 NHL franchises and paired them up with 10 women's teams. They would play, I would presume, probably end up playing, at least for the first couple seasons, in the practice facilities, which I believe
kind of how it's going for a lot of
Whitecaps
anyway.
are kind of doing already anyway.
Yeah.
That Pittsburgh All-Star
Boston
game you
too, I
went,
think.
that Pittsburgh All-Star game you went to was in the Penguins
Yep, the Mario
facility.
Lemieux Iceplex in Cranberry Township, yeah.
So it wouldn't necessarily be something that would be a foreign idea, but just do your best to try and grow the game and try and get fans that are alienated, whether it's younger girls that are going out with their moms or dads, or if you're hitting up the LGBT communities, just trying to be more inclusive by providing something other than what the NHL product is, right? Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
and you know what? And we're going to tell all these teams, you're going to lose, I don't know, $750,000 a year. So maybe we can find a way to provide you with some sort of team credit or salary credit on the NHL side. Something. Get creative, because losing money is not necessarily the worst thing in the world if you're trying to grow.
Well, I mean,
a
none
game.
of these men are really, the owners are not losing money at the end of the day. They're getting profit sharing and things like that. So losing money
and
up front
guess what?
is
Eugene
whatever.
Melnick's not getting a team. So other than that, at this point, I think everybody else is pretty chill as far as the NHL ownerships go.
My thing with all this, the girls 1,000% deserve a livable wage.
Absolutely.
They deserve health insurance. I just forgot what I was going to say. I don't think they're going about it the right way. I don't think killing the only league left is an answer to grow women's hockey, which is their ultimate goal here, as well as get paid. But to boycott professional hockey and kill the only league left that is paying players what they can pay them. And they've been in talk with the NHLPA, NWHLPA about pay rate, more pay, more profit sharing, more merchandise going to them, merchandise sales going to them. So the NWHL is doing what they can as they grow. And the league has grown exponentially the past 2 seasons. In the first 2 years, the league was a baby deer, stumbling everywhere. Danny Riley maybe not so good at her job, learning on the fly. These past 2 years, she's grown a lot as a commissioner, and she's really done a good job growing this league as best she can with the resources that she has. You can't say she hasn't.
I guess that is partially true. It is hard because everybody, like, the NWHL is not going to be featured on Saturday nights on NBC. I don't think we want that level.
I mean,
it's hard because
they had NWHL players on the All-Star game and on all these broadcasts, and no one has ever mentioned that Kendall Coyne plays for the Whitecaps. And
right, it was
this is
just
a blip
here they are
somewhere far out. Like, yeah, these are pro women's players, and they never said that Brand Decker played for the Calgary Inferno. Or
As someone who doesn't know much about this, Kendall is unreal. She's
crazy.
really
She's
good.
super good.
I'm so used to whoever's down between the benches sounding so incompetent, and she's super good. So
junior hockey team from Manitoba. So
I mean, the league's not paying them more because they don't want to.
physically
They just
can't.
physically
That's right.
can't.
So, and they know
this was the first women's pay league in the world.
right,
Was
so,
it not?
So why?
at least in North America.
Yeah, North America. I mean,
So it seems curious that they went to every single avenue and couldn't find any sort of corporate sponsorship or equipment deals or a local health insurance company or a local doctor that was willing to see these players on the cheap or basically like under the
because it's
table.
hockey. It's not football or baseball or basketball. It's hockey. Hockey's the smallest sport of the big sports. Like, yeah, XFL just announced today that they're going to be broadcasted on ESPN, Fox, ABC, and FS1. NHL can't even get on ESPN. You can't even get on Sports Center.
They can barely get on NBC.
It's just any kind of football. We're going to put it on TV.
Yeah, how long has it been since the NHL has been on ESPN?
Like
It's
2000
post-lockout.
they're on
They were
ESPN
on-
Plus though now, and like one
They get
game
a
a
one
night
game
is
a
on
night.
Yeah,
the internet
yeah,
stream.
ESPN Plus. It's like being on Fox Sports 8
For them,
show.
but for them, that's a huge step because they
They were also once on the Outdoor Life Network.
You also well that became Versus, which was all NBC anyway. But that also, I believe ESPN was in on the bid but NBC bid like $2.5 billion, and ESPN balked at that. ESPN wanted to continue the deal or have a deal, but their whole thing was like, well, we're ESPN, so we don't have to pay you $2 billion, and Bettman didn't walk away from a check that size.
And originally, too, when NBC bid on that, they were the number one. Well, no, they actually, no, they were still the number one priority for him. And then since then, between the Premier League and the NFL, they've clearly slipped down.
They won the Sunday Night Football contract, and
with those big TVs, with those network deals comes big money,
huge money.
At least they're getting to pay their players.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah,
that's why the NBA makes such crazy money now, because they get such crazy TV contracts.
But here's the deal with the okay. So going back again to the NBA WNBA relationship, there are games every week on ESPN2, or I think there was a contract at one point with Lifetime, and I believe the teams have local deals with their local stations.
The Liberty, I believe, play on MSG.
Right. So so it's very similar to any sort of basically any property that runs in that market. They would be on that. Well, when you try and go out on your own, you're not able to do it. The ideal scenario that I think everybody wants is the NHL to give women's hockey $25 million and then just leave it alone and let everybody figure it out, which is unrealistic.
Is also a very bad idea.
But I'm coming at it from an outsider too. I don't go to the games on the regular. I am aware of the teams. I'm aware of some of the elite players. It is a difficult bubble to penetrate, the women's hockey Twitterverse, which I think is more indicative than in other sports of what the fans are, because the community has seemed to grow on social media, and there isn't necessarily millions of fans that don't use social media, right? Like, we know that there's NFL fans that are not on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram all the time. I get the feeling that there are more fans of the WNHL and of women's hockey in general that are on those forms of social media than not. So that's why when I see what is being said on social media, I think it's more credible, because I think a greater population of fans of that sport
I would say
are on
the average age of the fan and target audience of the fan group is a computer age.
Exactly.
I mean, there are certainly NFL fans who watched Super Bowl I 50 years ago and have to get their grandkids to show them how to use their email.
Absolutely. Right. So when I see that, every time you say something, it seems like it's told, well, that's not the right answer, or you're disqualified from talking about it for one reason or another, and then the cycle just begins anew. So to me, I think the only solution is the route they're going. I understand, Justin, what you're saying. Was this the right way to submarine anything? I mean, sometimes you got to risk everything to gain something, right? So I think that's what they're ultimately doing. Will it work or not? I don't know.
It depends on what they define as working, too. I don't think Gary Bettman gives a shit. If Gary Bettman gave a shit, he would have. The NWHLPA gave man, it's great women have opinions about things these days.
That statement
3 days after the NFLPA, who has no reason to even pretend to care about this, went out and was like, we stand with these women and their right to.
Unbelievable.
The NFLPA, the NFL, who brings in, like, we can draft Tyreek Hill after he pushed his pregnant girlfriend down the stairs and make it look okay. That PA can come in here and be like, man, I think it's really actually perfect. It's great. We hope these women get what they deserve. That PA can come in and do this, and the NHLPA and Gary Bettman can just fucking stand there and be like, I don't know, man. I guess it's good that women are talking these days. It's good for them using that Twitter.
We gave you $100,000. What else do you want from us?
Yeah, the $50,000 they gave to the C last year, they just moved it over to the end column and like, man, I'm so great at this. Look at me, Gary Bettman, moving money around just left and right. The NHL doesn't give a fuck about this league,
right? And that's the problem. And now not having that, they're going to be in real trouble.
I've got a very conspiracy theorist take about the NHL being very involved in all of this. Maybe I'll get into that later on. Depends how frustrated I get. But I don't see this working without NHL's involvement. 1, obviously the resources. 2, the community reach. 3, the reach of the sponsors. There's so many. It's so much beyond the financial resources. It's all just their reach to everything. And the Butcher took off once Pagul took them over. Right. It's not because they had the money. Not they're poor money. We're poor money. But it's because they're all the exposure at the same.
The cross promotion between the teams on the team.
In arena too.
And players wearing Buttes hats.
Yeah, they're wearing other Pagula Sports Entertainment property hats during interviews. Yes.
Everyone wants to. No one wants NHL involved in this, but this happened. This is the exact same strategy that women's national team took when they boycotted that a couple years ago, and they're boycotting for more money when they wanted money the guys made, which is very much deserved.
Well, it's 100%.
But the USA Hockey was not balking. They were not going to pay these girls.
Yeah.
They were going to pay them a little more, but not what they wanted. And they weren't going to, and they were prepared to have the younger girls step in.
Right.
And,
well,
and
that's,
the NHL stepped in and paid $25,000 per player to make it work.
So now it is. Is there an entire generation? Is there, let's say, I mean, realistically, you would need round numbers. Let's just say like 120 females that see what the greatest generation of women's hockey has just done, and are they willing to then come into this league and fill? And really now, if they want to go to Montreal and Toronto, I mean, the labor. There's just not enough labor to do that.
There's no chance they're in Montreal and Toronto this season at this point.
At this
no matter
point,
what
that's
happens,
shot.
I would say.
I mean, can you realistically expect to fill even the 5 existing teams? No.
It's 20 players a team conservatively, 18 starter, 17 active, and a minimum of 3 practice players, 5 teams, 100 players. There's absolutely no way I would agree with that.
100 players who
100 players are going to cross a picket line basically and say that we'll play for $2,000.
Wanting to be Hillary Knight.
Yeah.
And then they're going to... No,
and these are all going to be like a lot of fresh out of college women who are evaluating what they want to do with the rest of their lives.
Right, and now they see what the generation that, if they have any sorts of perspective, they understand that they're probably not as good as, and then they're going to see that those players were treated like crap, and now they're going to try and step in and treat it from. I don't know what the day-to-day,
I mean, certainly the way I read the room with the players is they do not believe that the NWHL has their best interests in mind.
No, and that's very obvious.
I mean, I think if the NWHL was bankrolled by Vince McMahon and they had a couple $1 million into it, I think some players would look the other way because they'd be making a living wage and having insurance and everything, and maybe they wouldn't care what they thought about Danny Ryland. But if they're not going to play for a league they don't believe in, for a person they don't believe in, for money that barely covers their cost of buying new equipment every season. I mean, how many players have we seen retire, like Mie Dench or Sarah Casorso, players who are younger than the people in this room are giving up playing professional sports because it doesn't make sense for them because they can just go and
be a brewer.
To go brew beer, or the engineers who have left the Rivers. I mean, it's like, there's money out there for them, and it's like, at some point it's not worth me going out there and risking taking a serious injury for a couple $1,000s because I can just go play bar league or something and still play the sport I love. I mean,
then you're not risking your life, and you're making $60,000 a year instead of $2,000 a year.
At the same time, in terms of growing the game, if this kills the last remaining pay league and no one else steps up to league, what good have you done?
I do. Okay, so
I know professional women's hockey.
You're kind of taking my question. Where does it go from here?
I think it comes down to the United States and Canadian hockey federations.
Okay,
I think they're going to have to come together, and it's out. The players came together. This whole thing happened at February at the Worlds, right, where the teams before the final basically going out and trying to kick the shit out of each other. They talked to each other and
folded while players are flying over to Worlds.
Right, so they knew that this was going to come.
And both these federations they stink. They're worse than the NHL.
Well, I don't know what
hockey's a fucking tire fire.
I mean, there is no Vince McMahon that's going to sell $250 million of stock to fund something like this. So I'm trying to be realistic at the same time. It's hard to be realistic. I understand your point, but if the only option is so bad that it doesn't make sense to do it, why do you just keep doing it? And I think that's what the players came to this conclusion with the NWHL. You have to have confidence in your in ownership and leadership and managers, whatever it is. If you don't have that, and the labor doesn't believe in the cause or doesn't believe that it's in the best interest of them to go out and participate, then that's a real conundrum. And if you can't convince the players to get on your side for one way or another, you have to assume that Danny Ryland has had conversations with, or at least attempted to have some dialogue with them. And if she can't get through, what does that say about her? That
I'm sure that she or Anya or someone in the NWHLPA has been trying, and there have been basically no holdouts. I mean, The only Buffalo Beaut who hasn't tweeted her supportive for the game was Julia Totondo, who the only reason she hasn't is she doesn't have a Twitter. So literally every active Buffalo Beaut player has a Twitter. And the best supported, best backed, best trained, privately owned women's team in the world still doesn't think the NWHL provides what is the end game.
And that's what I was kind of waiting for space to drop that. Like the weird thing is that the one team is actually owned by a very rich owner. Is the entire team, and the only team that the entire team is boycotting.
Right.
And what do you think?
What if the Pagulas just said, like, we're paying everybody $100,000 on the team?
They probably could. I don't know.
I mean,
they probably could, but then they have no one to play.
But that would So
it's the Whitecaps all over again before they join the league. You just travel them.
I know that
they're barnstorming.
It's well noted and documented. A lot of some girls feel they're pressured to do this. And I wonder if
play or pressure
to join.
Well, of course, that's.
So I wonder if a lot of these. I wonder if a lot of these Buttes players are approached personally because of their ownership. Like it's a huge sign if this whole team boycotts. It's a huge statement.
I think part of it too is the camaraderie and kinship.
Oh, I totally agree.
There's a lot of long-standing friendships and teamships of players who have played here for college and high school together. I think
a lot of Nichols girls in that team.
It's just a domino falling. The first, I mean, with Falzer and Skamura, the Team USA ladies on the team, and as they fall, and everyone else, Cameronese.
I want to get this clear. Like we've been working with this league since its inception.
I mean,
and
I literally have Eric was at the podcast with a podcast. Eric was at the press conference where the league announced the team was coming to Buffalo. We have Justin. I think I missed the first game. Justin and I we went and took our own time to call games from behind the glass. We paid our own money to travel. I've never made a fucking dime doing this for the league because I believe in it. It's so frustrating to think that it won't exist next year.
Yeah,
I don't see an end game where there's.
It's not going to be the NWHL.
Yeah,
and
my point
NWHL is dead.
We're invested. I'm attached. I'm personally attached to this team, the players, and I want them to be paid. I want them to be compensated fairly as much as possible. I just don't think that this boycotting is the right way to do it. I don't know how you go about it. I just don't think killing the last league is a good way to do it.
I think the CWHL folding forced their hand a little bit because I think a lot of the CWHL players are the holdouts who left the NWHL as soon as they cut their salaries and reneged on contracts. They never intended to come back ever.
I think
if you do that once, though, you burn that bridge.
The bridge is long burned for Knight and Bozak and Decker and a lot of the players who went to the sea after they left their national teams that year. They were never going to come back, and now there's three options at this point. There is option one, which is what it has now, where there's no league. There's option two, where maybe the international federations come in and create something, or the Buttes continue to exist as an independent entity, and they can recruit whoever they want to come play here. Basically, at that point, form some super team and go barnstorming, like Bill said, or three, which is I think the end goal has to be at this point, whether or not it'll be said publicly or not, is that the NHL or some large financial backer outside of the current scope of women's hockey comes in and says, we will create this, we will back this. And the NHL just makes as much sense as anything because everyone keeps looking to the WNBA NBA model, or looking to what Gary Bettman has said, where he says, well, we won't do anything until there's no league that is viable.
Well, the NHL model and the NHL also makes sense because of the fact they have partners. The three of the teams have partnerships with NHL teams,
but partnerships. I mean, I don't know the numbers, but how much do
take it back to the next level.
The Devils let the Riveters have a home game in an afternoon.
They play in our facility.
Yeah. Other than ice time, how much are they really being financially supported other than making sure the team doesn't have another expense?
But it's a logical step in that they can take it to the next level, whether the NHL or the individual teams that they partner with take it to the next level and own the teams.
All I know is I hope Justin is right. I hope that there's a hidden hand kind of thing that players know that I think the NHL will step in, because if they're just doing this and hoping the NHL is going to step in, boy, is that a leap of faith, hoping that this NHL administration will do the right thing.
Every NHL fan ever has hoped the NHL would do the right thing.
I think the NHL really wants to be in. But the NHL wants.
I don't think the NHL wants to be in at all.
The NHL wants a women's league. I agree
with you, especially with the ladies at the skills competition.
But I don't think I think they want the NWHL to die.
I'm trying to get to it. I've got a thing.
Go ahead.
I think the NHL wants women's league. I think they want their own women's league. They want their own though. They don't want to step into the CWHL or the NWHL. They don't want to step into a conjoined of those two leagues. They want an NHL controlled women's hockey league, right?
And then they can dictate.
You do know that they do have a trademark for WNHL, right?
They have for a very long time.
The NWHL has an in with the Pagulas to the league. They have information there. They're very much in contact with the U.S. with the women's team, the national team, because they're at all the All-Star games. They're doing marketing with them. They're in contact with them. They're paying more than half their salary for USA Hockey. All right. They just broadcasted I can't talk.
CWHL also.
The CWHL,
the Clarkson Cup
on NHL Network. Like, I don't know how you're gonna be on that stage and put on it was a great game, and then just fold.
Well, I just
feel like the CWHL folded 4-1 league, okay, and now these girls are putting pressure on the NWHL and boycotting in hopes that it folds, and there's no league, and the NHL steps in and starts their own league. And the NHL has said, one of the higher execs have said that they're both separate businesses with separate business plans, and we don't want to get involved in their, whatever. You know what I'm talking about.
Bill Daly.
Yeah. That's a kind of a telling quote, in my opinion. I just think the NHL wants they wants a league, but they want their own league, and I just think they're very much involved. Very sneakily.
That makes sense on a lot of those points. There's a couple things that I see that don't line up. So I'm
really holding back because I feel like I'm going to get kind of conspiracy theorist here. I'm going to get a lot of back players.
If the NHL cared about the status of a lot of the players, then Brianna Decker wouldn't have run trials on a commercial break and won a trophy they didn't give her. If they really cared about it, they wouldn't have tried to bury Kendall Coy next to Pierre McGuire for a game until the internet yelled at them. I don't think the NHL has any interest in the existence of a privately controlled women's league. It's another expense for them. And we talk about Gary Bettman not knowing enough to want his games on ESPN because NHL gave him a bigger check. It's a profit-driven, money-driven thing. It's a PR thing for them. That's it. I don't think they might do it if they have to do it. But I think as long as the NWHL is in existence, there is zero financial backing by the NHL to a women's hockey league or women's.
Well, they
hockey
already
players.
financed it back. They give each league $50,000, and the NHL has reallocated that $50,000 for the C to the N.
Yeah,
that's it. They're not giving any more.
Exactly,
just reallocating funds.
Exactly.
So here's what I think happens. I think this boycott. They stick to it. They boycott.
I 100% think they do stick to it.
The NWHL folds.
Mm-hmm.
There's no women's hockey this year. Next year. Once the next year, there's an announcement of a new NHL run.
So for the 2020-21 season, there would be the new or whatever we're going to call it, WNHL.
Probably.
Yeah.
Since
that's what I think happens. I think there's no women's hockey this year, and the following year is an NHL run league.
Here's another concern on that front while we are talking about the year off. Year one, attendance, tough. Year two, a little bit better. Tough. Year 3, growing. Year 4, growing. Doesn't taking a year off with none of these women playing professionally, where they're not accessible, they're not connecting, they're not growing, does a year off kill a lot of interest in the existence of this league?
Well, the Whitecaps were an independent team for a while.
Yeah, but I don't think they were still continuously existing. There were always games to go to, and they were traveling.
Well, so they got the Whitecaps that will probably operate independently as they were. The Buttes are obviously an independent team.
The Whitecaps are going to be interesting because they're getting NWHL salaries. They're going to go away now.
You could have that team, the China team for CWHL that still operates. I think there'll be teams to play on, just not many.
I think it'll be just like how the biggest moments still in women's hockey are when the U.S. and Canada play. Mm-hmm. I think they're, I could absolutely see, an exhibition series. It doesn't really even matter how you divide up the teams necessarily, but if you hosted a tournament of some kind, even if it's like a Big Three, like the Big Three league that they have with all the old NBA players that Ice Cube runs, just do something like that where you host that at Harbor Center or out in Minneapolis, St. Paul area or whatever, and that's what kind of bridges everything for the next year. But yeah, I think that the NHL, in order to get involved, did want a clean break from everything, and the cleanest break would be both companies going under and then forming something. The problem is that the NHL is going to have player input, and I don't know if they don't want to hear their own players right now. I really don't think that they're going to be interested in any sort of input from a women's players association.
If a league
union
exists, a women's league exists run by the NHL, it's going to be a very different animal from the kind of input that the NWHLPA allows. I mean, it's run and headed by Anya Battaglino, who played for Connecticut and knows what it's like to be a professional women's athlete in hockey in the world that exists. It's not going to be an NHL-run league. Should it come to fruition, whether it's this fall or next fall, which probably makes more sense. Thank you for elaborating a lot of these points that I can't quite get to. I don't know that they're ever going to create a better scenario than what existed. Maybe there will be a league that gets created where they get paid more, and I hope that is true as soon as possible for all of these top-level women's players that are out there currently without teams. The ones that are going to be hit the hardest are the ones that aren't. It's not the Hillary Knights or Kennecoin Schofields who are going to go to the Canadian and American national teams that have that financial backing and not get paid as much as the top men, sure, but get paid a livable wage to train for their national teams. It's the players who are it's the fringe athletes. It's the Maddie Elias. It's crazy to me to think that Maddie Elia, who is the NWHL MVP by all accounts and my personal MVP as well, is looking at not being able to play professional hockey anywhere because she's not on the U.S. women's national team. There are so many athletes like that out there, and I hope that for the sake of all of them, and not just the ones that are there now, it's the graduating seniors who are drafted by the CWHL and the NWHL. It's the high school athletes who are going to college and maybe wanted to play in those leagues some year. I hope that whatever this leads to, it creates a league that is what they want it to be, because I'm terrified that what they're going to get is not what they're shooting for.
Time will tell. It doesn't seem great right now, but maybe there is some solution that creates the brings back the NWHL. And congratulations on your 5th season of broadcasting, if that happens. And if not, then it's we move on to the great unknown. I don't know what the answer. We can't predict the future. We don't know, but certainly all the signs seem to be pretty logically pointing towards or pointing away from one of these conclusions. I guess is the best way to say.
There's a lot of Canadian girls and people that are involved in this that are like laughing at us for thinking it's not going to work. So it's like they know something that we don't know, obviously.
It's Canada. Hockey always works up there.
Huh?
It's Canada. Hockey always works.
Yeah. I just feel like there's something really behind the scenes going on here, and I think the NHL's involved very much in the sense. At least in cahoots.
Then why won't they tell our country if they're involved? They're only just broadcasting on 102.1 The Edge or something up there?
Maybe. I don't know.
All right.
I'm very curious to see. I hope it works out for the best for the girls, because they deserve to be paid fairly.
I always figured.
I just kind of, I don't know. I just think the NWHL, I think they tried their hardest. I think the cutting. The salaries
sung for the fences.
Yeah, and the cutting of the salaries was tough. It was a big punch in the face of these girls. But I think the way they went about that was totally wrong. But it's not they're doing it just to like line their own pockets. It was to keep the league running and stay viable.
And the CWHL doesn't fold. I think they get away with it. I think a couple more years that fades away. The next generation comes in and gets established, and they didn't burn the bridge with the next generation of players, maybe, and maybe that would have been water under the bridge. But it all happened too soon. It's too fresh in the mind for a lot of those players.
I thought this year was super successful, in my opinion. You see it. You see the growth game by game. You're at every game. Yeah. I'm just surprised it happened.
I mean, I see the viewer counts and interactions on the Twitter live streams and people at the games. I saw a sold-out Harbor Center for a semifinal game again this year, and it's frustrating. And that's what this is all coming from, a place of frustration for me. I always figured that, whatever came of trying to be a professional hockey broadcaster. I figured that, worst case scenario, 40 years from now, I'd hang up with the Buttes, and who cares if I ever made it? Just I wanted to do that forever, and thinking that that's gone it's sad.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry.
We tried our part.
we did what we could.
Yeah.
We did everything. Since that league started up, we did everything we could.
So we hope this is not the last. It probably, regardless of what happens, this won't be the last segment like this, but we hope that we have a more involved update segment sooner than later. We might have beat the horse to death tonight, but this is coming from a place of 5 guys in this room, and all of us who have been involved with the podcast have been very actively behind this since day one, very literally in Eric's case, and day 3 or 4
I remember
in Justin's case.
We were having Haley Williams over to Lockhouse back in 2015.
Buffalo Buttes OG.
We've been doing this for a long time. We had Danny writing blogs for the website.
Shout out to Linda.
Linda. Sorry, I apologize. But we had Linda in studio when we were in Fandoozy. I mean, we've been doing this for a really long time and putting an honest effort in. I'm sure that there will be people that question motivation and motives and all that, but the only motivation is just trying to watch people live and follow their dreams just like we have.
The only motivation is hockey is awesome, and I want to see the best players in every aspect of it play professionally in Buffalo.
Good hockey is good.
Hockey is great.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I got. I can't talk about it anymore.
All right.
I beat that horse to death.
I don't know if there's anything else to talk about.
Is there anything else in the world of sports to talk about right now?
Baseball.
Let's talk about what happened with the AAF real quick.
Yeah.
Did you hear that this also died?
Rumor is
Let's talk
AAF
about
died.
dead sports franchises.
Hell yeah.
No, I think that just about concludes everything for this evening.
So, in grand conclusion, thank you for listening. You can find us on Facebook at 716 Sports Podcast, on Twitter at 716 Sport Podcast. Our podcasts are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Stitcher, whatever the hell it is that you use to put podcasts on your mobile or immobile device, your iMac, your laptop, your portable Walkman, or CD changer. We are on there. You can find us, like, share, and subscribe to your heart's content. We'll be back here next Monday or whatever to talk about whatever else happened since the last time we were here. Right now, you can watch your Buffalo Bandits play the Toronto Rock officially now this Saturday, May 11, 7:30 p.m. face-off. It is going to be packed because Toronto travels very well to these games. So if you're listening, please buy your ticket in my row as soon as possible so that I don't have to sit by 10 Toronto fans in section 106, row 9. If you're looking for where exactly to buy them, please.
Targeted advertising at its finest.
Save
right
me
there.
from all the Toronto fans who are probably buying these tickets while we're recording.
You also might want to encourage people to buy rows 8 and 10 as well.
Yeah, probably. Just buy the whole section, everyone. But in all honesty, super fun. Please come out and support the boys. We've been lucky to have so many of them on here this year, and Corey was great here tonight. So come out, support them. It's a party, and hopefully we'll be cheering them on at least one more home game. I guess if they win Saturday, one home game victory would be all that we would want. Better 2 than 3. Anyway, thank you so much for listening and letting us vent, and we'll be back here with you next week. Love you. See you soon.